Everyone, and we have our special guest, Master Coach Lisa Harer deCalvo. Welcome, Lisa. It's always a pleasure.
It's great to be here.
Thank you so much. Where were you actually born?
I was born in Syracuse, New York, or Syracuse, as they say there.
And where did you go to school?
Well, my undergraduate was the Crane School of Music, which is a SUNY Potsdam.
You did your undergrad. Where did you go? Did you do grad school?
I went to graduate school. I went to New England Conservatory in Boston. Master's degree is actually in, I don't even think it exists anymore, vocal accompanying.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't have much interest in playing for instrumentalists. I never really did much of that. Throughout my entire life, I didn't really do much of that. And that was the one place that had, I think a Catholic university also had a similar degree.
Okay.
I didn't apply there, though. I applied to New England Conservatory. I kind of put all my eggs in one basket.
Was your family musical at all?
Interestingly enough, we have a huge joke in my family. I am literally the only person in the family that has any musical talent whatsoever. I'm the youngest of four, actually. They're all still alive.
Thank God.
My mother had me. She was changing me. I was on the bassinet, and she was in the bathroom, I guess. And my next oldest brother was on the floor, and he got into the trash can. And my mother went to get him out of the trash can, and while she was doing that, I rolled over and fell off the bassinet on my head.
Ooh.
We always say that's where it came from. No other musical talent in my family at all.
Wow. Who did you study with piano first?
The most important teacher I ever had, and the best teacher I ever had for piano her name was Patricia Slagle. She was just in my hometown, and she was very nurturing, and she recognized what I had. Mm-hmm. And really brought me along very nicely. Unfortunately, she moved away when I was around 16 or 17.
And then when you went to college, who did you work with?
Oh, a variety of people. I worked with James Ball for a couple of years. He was a really lovely gentleman, but he retired. And then my final teacher in college was John Kozar. And in graduate school, of course, it was a specific type of program, and the teacher was Terry Decima at the New England Conservatory.
Now, I never really asked you this question, but I have heard you sing, and it's quite great.
That's very nice. Thank you very much.
Did you study voice?
I did. I had a really wonderful voice teacher at Potsdam. Her name was Lynn Myers. I think she's still alive.
Yeah.
And she she was one of the greatest influences on my entire career. Not only was she a wonderful voice teacher, my parents agreed. I was a piano major. Mm-hmm. My parents knew that I was interested in singing, and I asked if I could have private voice lessons with Mrs. Myers, and they paid for private voice lessons. She taught me, not only she taught me a lot about how to sing, but she encouraged me to go into vocal accompanying. I accompanied a lot of people in her studio. Uh-huh. Even from my first year there as a freshman, I played for a couple of really difficult recitals, and she pretty much single-handedly prepared me for my audition at New England Conservatory.
Wow.
She was really a great influence on my life, and taught me a lot about how to sing. And I also learned a lot from playing voice lessons over the years.
Sure. It's obvious that your attraction to the vocal arts is really significant. Why didn't you just go and sing?
Because my parents wouldn't let me change my major, John.
Really? I believe that.
They had spent many, many years and a lot of money giving me piano. Somewhere in there, I talked to my parents about letting me change to voice, and they said no. It's unfortunate, but no, it's not really unfortunate.
No, it's not.
I don't think I have the right personality for that profession.
Yeah, we're a bunch of wackos.
Well, it's not just that. I like my home life. I like to be at home. I have a great husband. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I have a really beautiful place that I live, and I really like being kind of a domestic nerd in a lot of ways. It worked out okay. Great. But I still managed to learn how to sing somewhere in there too. So.
Well, it's very obvious from your comments. You know languages very well. How did you actually fit that in between singing and accompanying? How do your languages?
Well, 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 Spanish doesn't really come into the play in singing, but I speak Spanish because of my husband.
Right.
In college, in Potsdam, when I was an undergraduate, the way they did it for music majors is you had to take all of the required music courses, obviously.
Hmm.
And then you had, I don't remember the number, but X amount of credits had to be taken, and you could, in liberal arts, and you could take anything you wanted.
Wow.
So I took German and I took French while I was in an undergraduate school. And then, of course, in graduate school, I had really intense diction classes. My Italian is self-taught. Jose and I have taught ourselves Italian.
Isn't that something? Wow.
I mean, and let me say that my Italian is it's far from perfect.
No, it's very good. I always found it very good. I mean, even when we worked together, I thought it was great.
Well, I mean,
corrected mine, and I speak Italian.
There you go. Well, I find with Italian, there's about as many ways to speak Italian as there are Italian people.
That is true.
There's a way that I learned how to look up all the diction of Italian, and I still do that, but I don't really go nuts with that with people unless it makes a difference in the meaning of the word. I'm talking about the vowels, really.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's the basis of singing. I thought that you would have done, another section of education just on that from the way that you.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice. I mean, no, I think I have a bit of an ear for languages.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now after college, and what did you do?
Well, after graduate school, I stayed in Boston, and actually, okay, so funny story again. When I was in graduate school, my first year, so I did 2 years. I did my master's in 2 years, and my first year, people just look at me like I'm nuts when I say this, but it's the truth. I was bored. I was so bored my first year that I went out and got a job.
Get out.
Working at Au Bon Pain, the French bakery. You know what that is? Did they have that around here? They do have.
Yes, they do. Yes.
I went and worked. I worked part-time at the Au Bon Pain at the Prudential Center, the original one in the Prudential Center. So after I got out of graduate school, the summer between my 2 years and the summer after I graduated, I worked in Maine for the summer at a resort.
Okay.
Playing the piano.
Mm-hmm.
And where I met Todd Thomas, actually. He made
really wow
story. Yeah, I met Todd and his wife. They were not married yet. Anyway, did that in between, but I floundered a little bit at first because I wasn't sure what I was going to do when I got out.
Okay.
And so I went back to work at Au Bon Pain. I went full time at first.
Okay.
But shortly thereafter, I picked up a gig working in a dinner theater. Believe it or not.
I believe it.
Really horrible at it because I'm not a music theater person.
Right.
And I was replacing someone who had a very, very different skill set than me. My skill set, as you know, is you put the music in front of me and I play the music.
Right.
And I can pretty much play within reason. I can pretty much put what's in front of me.
Sure.
I can play. But this guy was one of those like super genius people that could improvise everything, and he, and I just couldn't do that. So it was a real adjustment for the people that were already at the dinner theater, and definitely difficult for me. It was kind of miserable, to be honest, but I did learn a lot.
Okay.
Also, after a while, I quit the bakery job because the dinner theater job was actually very time consuming. And I worked every single night in December because we had a Christmas show.
Sure.
And I couldn't continue to get up at 6 a.m. and be at work at 7 to 3, and then go to it was too hard. So I stopped the bakery, and I can't remember the exact year, but somewhere maybe around 1986 or so. I'm really giving away my age here. I'm 60. I'm just going to say it.
God bless.
Around 1986, I started working at Boston University. Was in the first year of the Boston University Opera Institute.
Wow.
They were just expanding the program. They just started the Opera Institute, and they were looking for more pianists. And I sort of fell into that. I don't know how it happened. I was over there playing an audition for one of the singers, and one of the voice faculty apparently really liked the way I played the piano for this singer, and it came up to me after the audition and gave me some compliments, and it was lovely. And then I found out that they were looking for pianists in their program, and so I applied because I thought, well, this woman really liked me. Maybe I can say, hey, you really liked me. Maybe you'd like to say something. And I don't. It was all very serendipitous. My career. They hired me, even though I had like almost like zero experience, really. But I worked there for about 3 or 4 years, where I met Jose. Actually, we met at
Okay.
Boston University. Funny story there, but I probably won't tell it during this interview.
That's over a couple of cocktails, I'm sure.
Yes, over a couple cocktails.
Sure. Was there a big deal of talent there at that time at the school? Did you work with singers who actually, after that, had careers?
Couple people, yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
Hai Jing Fu was a singer
Okay.
there.
Right.
Dominique LaBelle was one of the singers there.
Mm,
She,
right.
I don't think she had a huge career, but she had a very substantial career, and has. I think she's not doing a singing career anymore. I believe that she is teaching in Canada. Hai Jing Fu is probably the most famous person that I worked with there.
Yeah.
He had a pretty substantial career. He sang at the Met
Yes.
for a
Yeah.
number of years.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was some talent. And it was Phyllis Curtin was the dean at the time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Phyllis Curtin recruited a lot of really great singers
Yeah.
from kind of all over.
Well, she was a wonderful singer. I liked her.
Yeah. She was-
Either you liked her or you didn't like her.
Well,
liked her.
I mean, I didn't know anything about her actual career. I think she was great for Boston University.
I'm sure she was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And as you played for singers now through these years, what is it that you find that is the most needed skill for younger singers when they first
I don't
starting
have
out?
that many young singers anymore, but I mean, I think that nobody ever really tells anybody how to really do the work. Like the actual
Preparation.
preparation and I mean, I think a lot of things have to just be learned along the way. It's a really hard career,
It is.
and it's not enough to just sort of show up knowing your notes.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I say this because one of the things, again, as I found singers that we've had on Masterclass, is that I'm surprised with a master's degree that they are not as well educated. And I mean this not from I'm talking more of a historic and musical preparation of knowing the different traditions of listen, and I'm not expecting everybody to come on here and sing perfectly because they wouldn't need us. They would be singing perfectly. So, but the skill level has been diminished. I'm talking people who are in their mid-20s to mid-30s. I think that the preparation, people don't know how to look back into the score and find these nuances that you as a coach would have to physically and point out. How do you find that at working with singers? And you say, there's so much that could be done here, or explain to them how to understand what the score is saying.
Well, with some people, it's actually quite impossible.
I believe it.
They just can't do it. I have had singers that just can't. I mean, I'm very text oriented when I coach. I think you probably know that.
Yes.
And I mean, obviously also musically oriented, but when it comes to opera, if you don't know your text, you might as well sing on la.
Exactly.
What's the freaking point if you don't know what you're singing about?
Yes.
So, I mean, I try to work with the text and say, this is what you're saying. This is what has happened. This is now what you're talking about. And I also try to work, try to at least suggest that people draw from their own life experience based on what's happening in the score.
Exactly.
I have to say, though, to sort of further expand to answer the original question, one of my biggest beefs is I wish the people would learn how to breathe. I wish the people would learn how to breathe. I have so many people that come in and I say to them, so tell me about what your teacher tells you about breathing. And the answer is often, we don't really talk about breathing.
Wow.
And I'm always kind of like astonished by that. Breathing is the basis of singing. How can you possibly not talk about breathing with singers? Except that maybe in their defense, there's so much that has to be done in an academic setting that I don't know. I'm not an academic setting girl.
No, I'm not
Clearly
either.
not. I don't know. Maybe it's the academic world.
I just don't get if your breath and your voice are one, and I don't get how that's not taught. But I do find that to be a very accurate statement.
It's astonishing to me.
Befuddled is my word.
I can answer it.
How many singers that you work with can actually sight read well?
A few.
More than half?
No,
Okay.
less than half.
So you would say that their musical
Okay,
skills.
so you're not talking, let's talk pre-pandemic. Okay,
Yes,
because
yes.
like I have like 4 people now or 5 people.
Right. Yes.
So pre-pandemic, when I had kind of what I would call more or less a full studio, I would still say less than half.
Wow.
I mean, they all have musical. They can all read music.
Exactly right.
I'm not saying anybody can't read music.
Right.
But sight reading, that's hard. Even
Really?
I don't know. It's a skill that can be developed.
No, I think that actually, I think it is a skill. It's not learned, and it has to be obtained.
Well, I learned how to sight read. I wasn't born sight reading.
Me too. I'm same here. For your singers who are just starting in the business, what do you recommend for them to do? How do you recommend them get prepared?
Well, okay, they have to do the basics, clearly. I mean, the first thing that I generally recommend someone do is the translation if necessary.
Okay, so that's number one. That's your first step. Which would obviously.
In general, I would say that the translation needs to be done. And I actually recommend that they listen to the piece. Okay. Not to learn it that way, but to listen, get an idea of what it is.
Really?
But yeah, so anyway, translation, making sure you're you need to be familiar with the whole plot of the opera. If it's an opera aria, I do mostly opera and do some oratorio and don't do much art song. So let's just talk about opera.
Sure.
Now, developing some idea of what your character is. And I mean, in the obvious, learn the music. Especially I find that, people just don't really get how to sit down at the piano and plunk out the notes. Developing your skills and making sure that you have to have really, really, really sharp skills, and you have to be fast.
Absolutely.
And you have to be someone that when the coach or someone says, no, it's blah, 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 blah.
Right.
The next week I better hear blah, 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 and not the whatever they were doing before. And you just have to be, it's so much work though. I think that what people don't really understand is how much work the career is.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's just the musical preparation.
Yes.
And then there's the character development and acting and, and the languages, of course, you really have to know your languages. If you can't speak Italian, you at least need to speak Susanna or Tosca.
Exactly.
If you don't speak the language, you at least, and of course, again, there's all these resources now. Back in the day, we didn't have these Nico Castell books. I have a very specific way of looking up Italian diction. That's the way I was taught back, like 1,000 years ago at NEC.
Sure.
And I certainly have a whole bunch of them right down here to my left.
What music did you enjoy more than others? When
to coach?
Yes. What do you, is there a specific, do you like, I know you do such a wide variety of music and every singer's different.
The huge cop-out answer is kind of like whatever I'm working on.
Really?
But I will say that I am not a huge fan of brand new music. And I spent I unfortunately have a really undeserved reputation as someone who's good at that kind of music, but I'm really not. I mean, I don't enjoy it.
Well, you read well and you're musical, so that that's.
that helps.
Working with singers, do you find that you flock towards certain voices and their repertoire? Not saying that you would refuse somebody to come in and coach, of course, but do you have a favorite? And I know your husband's a tenor. So, and I'm a tenor fan myself. I'm a tenor freak.
Yeah, you're going to love my answer.
Go ahead.
Because I like baritones.
Do you really?
Yeah. I actually like all voice categories. I love the baritone rep, and I've had some, as you know.
Yes.
Had some really great baritones over the years. Yes. But I also really like the big soprano rep, the big, like the Tosca.
I do. I love it.
And I mean, Cavalleria Rusticana is my favorite opera.
Is it really? That was my next question.
I could play that followed by the Magic Flute, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. And certain parts of like the Idomeneo Quartet to me is like a masterpiece.
Yes. Yes.
And I love the Don Giovanni Sextet, which, I mean, Mozart in general, I really like. But
Yeah.
as far as coaching, I really enjoy that sort of like that big rep, like the Pagliaccis, the
Yeah.
Toscans. But I mean, like I have a Fledermaus score sitting right next to me, and I love Die Fledermaus. It's so much fun, and I love Verdi because of all the detail. I kind of honestly, on that, whatever I'm working on. Yeah,
Have you ever had interest in conducting?
nope.
Have you ever been asked to conduct?
Not really. No. I mean, I think that might be technically a good conductor because
Okay.
I
Sure.
understand music very well,
Mhm.
but I am woefully unschooled in things like what it would take to actually stand in front of an orchestra
Uh-huh.
and say to the clarinet, blah, blah, blah. I just don't feel prepared for that.
Okay.
However, I've learned a lot over the years from various conductors, and I really understand that it's a difficult job.
Yes. Who were some of your favorites that you worked with?
My absolute favorite conductor that I ever worked with was Alain Lombard, the French conductor.
Mm-hmm.
I had the incredibly good fortune when I was in Florida to be the pianist for his. They did a Carmen.
Okay.
It was this is this great lady. She recently died, Judy Drucker. It was the Florida. I'm sure I'm going to get the name wrong, but the Concert Association of Florida or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she had all kinds of really great people that came in, and she put together this Carmen and brought in Alain Lombard. I mean, a really,
Wow.
really famous
Yeah.
conductor.
Sure.
And I got the gig to be the rehearsal pianist, and that was absolutely great. And I have lots of really good conductors. I've actually worked with quite a few really wonderful conductors David Lawton. Actually, I really like him. I've worked with him a couple times.
I'm sorry, who was it?
David Lawton, the
Oh,
guy.
David. Yes, David.
Yeah, the Chicago Press guy. But I did Little Women with him, and he was kick ass. He was great on that.
Yeah.
We at the time, I don't know what it's like now, but when we bought the score, it came with an errata sheet of all the problems, and he came to the first rehearsal and said, "Here are all the other ones," and there were a lot of them. So he's a really
David
solid, great conductor. That was fun.
You disagree sometimes with Tempe and some of the things that they're doing with the singers. Do you find that? Yeah.
Let
Okay.
me just tell you one quick story.
Please.
I was the rehearsal pianist for the chorus
Mm-hmm.
for a bohème
Okay.
at a company. And the chorus is mostly in the second act.
That's correct.
And how that's da 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 da. Okay, so I did all the chorus rehearsals with the chorus master. And the first time I had to play it for the conductor, it was with the children's chorus. Because that was for some reason that was how that worked out. This conductor started so fast that when I went to turn the page, my score fell. I ripped the page so fast that my score went across the room.
Jeez.
So yeah, sometimes I disagree with the Tempe.
Yeah, I get it. Have you done a lot of in-concert work or do you just like to stay behind the scenes?
I like to stay behind the scenes.
Yeah,
I haven't really performed in public in a while.
And I've always found that odd because you play so well and you have a wonderful stable of singers. Pre-pandemic, of course.
But, even now I still do. There's just not that many of them.
I find that I can't remember ever seeing you in a concert setting. That's why I'm asking, because it's unusual because you play so well.
Oh, thank
and
you.
Accompany so well. I mean, really.
I had a very bad experience playing a concert in a setting where I can only describe it as I was on the second floor. It was in a museum.
Mm-hmm.
There were two parts of the museum, and they were connected by the second floor walkway that had glass sides on it, plexiglass sides on it. Mm-hmm. The piano was out in the middle.
Okay.
And they were singing down to the people below. And I couldn't play the piano, John. I got so freaked out that I was next to that edge.
Really?
It was the worst experience I have ever had in my entire life.
Wow.
And I have never really recovered from that. It was actually about maybe 6 or 7 years ago.
Wow.
It was here when I lived in this area. And I've always had horrible nerves since then. Horribly. Really? I used to not have as many nerves.
Wow.
But I did actually play a really great concert for Justin, but that was before your time.
As I said, I don't remember ever seeing you in concert. I've always heard your name. I know people that you coach. as well as me. I've never seen you, and I always found that kind of odd, but I get it. Because that is a scary thing, and sometimes you just sometimes don't
I also
recover.
worked when I lived in Boston. I worked in New England Conservatory as well, and then after Boston, we went to Florida,
Okay.
and I worked at Florida Grand Opera for 7 years, and I was at Florida International University for about 2 or 3, I think,
Hmm.
doing some coaching. And the only reason we went to Florida was because my Latino husband didn't like the weather in Boston. It was too
Really?
cold for him. It was too cold for Puerto
Oh,
Rico.
okay.
So somebody
Yeah.
put the bug in his ear that we should move to Miami. And once I got on board with it, I was like, okay, let's go to Miami. But that was 1993, and I had to actually go to the library and get the Musical America out to look up what was going on down there. And I wrote
Really?
letters to people. I like wrote physical letters, and that's how that all went down. We'll talk about that if you want to ask about that.
Yeah.
And I worked with a young artist program, and there was a young artist there that we were having a coaching, and I was relentless that day, and I just said no, 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 no. And he finally said, "You have the ears of a dog. You hear everything. Nobody hears what you hear." So they called me Dog Ears deCalvo for a long time.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
What,
And so,
my brother was in there. Now that you bring that up, my brother was a young artist at Florida Grand Opera.
really, when? What? Not when I was there, obviously.
It would have been, hold on, let me think now. It had to be 90, 89, 90, 90, 91, maybe.
Okay, that's about 3 or 4 years before I got there in
Okay.
1994.
Was
I was
she,
94 to 2001.
okay. It was what was her name? Mary, the person who ran the Mary, that was, Richard's mother and father were but Buckley, Emerson Buckley. It was
Oh,
Mary
yes,
Buckley.
yes, yes. When the Buckleys ran it. Okay, that
Yes.
was definitely before my time.
Okay.
Right, that was like right before I got there. And then
Mm.
I think there was the person that I worked under, Mark Graff, was there like a year or two before I got there.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause I remember the Buckleys. I remember Richard as a conductor, actually.
Mhm.
And my brother actually from being in the program, had to study with his mother, Mary Buckley, and of
Yep.
course the father was Emerson Buckley.
Yep,
So,
I knew Mary Buckley actually when I was there. She still dabbled in teaching the young artists once in a while. Florida Grand
really?
Opera was a great experience. I learned so much about my craft there, and I had a great mentor. Mark Graff was a great mentor.
Yes.
And then Jose decided that he wanted to try to find a job with the federal government.
Okay.
And I said, fine, just find a city that's got an opera company, and I'll go. And he found Philly, and that's how we got here.
Excellent. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Thank you
Oh, you're
for
welcome.
all you do for Masterclass number
Oh,
one.
sure. It's been really a pleasure. What a bunch of good
That
singers.
we might say it a different way, but we're all in the same direction. And that
Oh, yeah.
basically what it is to get singers to sing well.
Just want to say that I want my legacy to be that I helped people.
You give us a bump up in class, as I say.
Oh, aren't you sweet? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for including me in this. I wasn't sure I had
Absolutely.
anything to say. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Got his hair, John Packard, and he is going to be able to grow it this long and have that one of those sort of, I call it in because that's Aryan nations, and they're actually going to be pretty much like tattoos done in prison, which is done not too well because they have very bad equipment because it's all illegal.
Right. One night, a cold bottle of beer down by the river with your woman. A little zydeco drifting down from the roadhouse. You lay your head on her breast, and she tells you everything is gonna be alright. Everything is gonna be alright. Everything is gonna be alright. And for a little while you believe her, and it
John Packard is very clear with his character. He'd taken a trip to Angola and he'd seen death row. He'd been on the car ride out there, and I think it deeply, deeply affected him and his idea of the character.
You can read a lot of books.
Welcome to Behind the Music, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are here with international spinto tenor, John Packard. John, welcome. It's always great to see you.
Always great to see you too, Johnny.
I have a few questions for you for our audience. Where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in Havertown, here in Philadelphia area, but I was born in Chicago.
Really?
Dad moved the family from Chicago area to Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Wow.
Lived there for 4 years.
Okay.
Terrific place to grow up. And then we moved to Havertown, and he took a different kind of job.
Good. Wonderful.
I went to Haverford High.
Okay.
I did sing in the choir.
Okay.
Was the only one who made it to states.
Wow.
But it wasn't the thing. You know, it was a trombonist. I was playing guitar.
Right.
And no one ever really gave me the big role in the musical.
Really?
Yeah. There was another guy who was always getting the roles. But I didn't know anything about singing. It was just, you know, just open my mouth and blurt it out. And the last thing I did in high school was, what's this story? Oh, it's Kiss Me Kate. Kiss Me Kate. And I was the first heavy, you know, who gets to sing Brush Up Your Shakespeare.
Right.
And I'm still friends with the guy that we did it with. And,
No kidding.
yeah, we had a great time. A big old auditorium, no microphones.
Of course.
And we entered onto the set, in front of the proscenium, curtains closed, did our first verse, got off stage this way, ran across the stage, and came in at the same. The place just erupted in laughter. We didn't need to sing anymore. And I kind of got a little bit of the bite for theater, but then I went to college.
Okay.
And I was a business major.
Really?
Yeah. Mostly marketing, economics, small college. And the small college was saying you can get some scholarship money for music.
Okay.
So I sang for the guy, the conductor, who was also the president of the college.
Oh my goodness.
And was my eldest sister's father-in-law.
Oh, okay. There you go. Okay.
But he's a composer as well.
Okay.
And so I sang for him, and he said, I want to give you a solo. And so I sang my first solo with the choir. It was nerve-wracking. It was, you know, I think it was like some kind of Lo How It Rose, but because it was this Christian school.
Right.
But it wasn't easy. And he said they're going to get easier after this. Each one will get easier.
Nice. Never did.
No, it just got harder and harder. And then finally we did the Magnificat of Bach.
Right.
And I was really struggling with that. So he recommended a voice teacher.
Okay.
And her name was Evelyn Reynolds.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And she was a dramatic mezzo.
Right.
Out of Chicago.
Right.
And so she's in New York, went to New York.
Yeah.
And she not only became my teacher, but she was really a mentor.
Sure.
She was already in her 70s, I think, at that point.
And how old were you about then?
I guess I was 21 when I started.
Really?
Yeah, to really sing.
Wow.
And she said I reminded her a little bit of Sam Raimi, and she brought me to Carnegie Hall to see him sing.
Right.
And then she asked me to do a senior recital.
Wow.
And I basically copied what Sam did. Si Trai Chappie was my first thing,
yes.
you know, and it was great, and it went well, and I showed that I had something.
Right.
I didn't have quite the flair, but I had something. Right after it was over, she went to my parents. She said, "I want to send him out to Eureka Springs, Arkansas, tomorrow."
Oh. Okay.
To be on stage, because he's never really been on stage and sing an opera.
Talk about jumping in.
Well, she paid for it, sent me out there. I've had to pay for the flight, and I got to do Old Maid and the Thief,
Wow.
Bob.
Right.
With the high G sharp.
Yep.
And I was the only one who had it.
That's right.
And I just went, ah! And it came out.
Lucky you.
Nothing to lose, right? And then Sid in Albert Herring.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a tough role.
Oh, it was. And it happened to be my first role at ABA.
Really?
Which was really
No
kind of
kidding.
cool.
Yeah.
But I kind of went back to that. And I got the bug. And so I went home. And I continued to work for the Hilton Corporation.
Right.
And then I heard about ABA.
Right.
Evelyn was in New York, so she said, go study with somebody in Philly. And so Paula Brown.
Oh, right. I love Paula. Oh, she's a sweetie.
She's a doll. And she got me ready for my audition for ABA.
Wow.
And I went back out to Eureka Springs, Arkansas for the one more year.
Okay.
And that time I did Marcello.
Wow.
And Escamillo.
Right.
And I met John Woosman.
Oh, right. Sure.
And he heard me sing Valentine's aria and went crazy. He thought, wow, this,
Right.
And I tell you that it was just natural. I didn't think about passaggio. I didn't think even of high notes. It just kind of went.
Right.
And probably because I was heading towards being a tenor.
Sure.
That's why it was so easy.
Right.
Later on in the years, I was singing with Marcello Giordani, and he said, "You have no passaggio. How do you do that?" He said, "Well, I don't need to cover E flat, E natural, and most of the time we don't sing anything. The stuff that I was singing with him was Manon and Debrieux. He's singing what's his name? Lescaut. I'm singing Lescaut, and there's not a lot to it. It's pretty simple. I think it was later on when I started singing Donizetti and Verdi that I was like, I need to
tweak it a little bit.
Tweak it a little bit. So I went to ABA. ABA was an amazing experience. Chris Makatsaurus.
Absolutely genius. Yes.
Not just a genius. He was a connection to the golden age.
Right. That is true.
And we had lunch one time, and he told me the whole story. That he was in Milano, and somebody said, "Hey, you play piano. They're looking for an accompanist at La Scala." He was like in his 20s. He said, "John, I just knew that they knew it. Right. So all I had to do was basically start them out and just follow along with what they were doing."
Jeez, God.
But he was working. The Radames was Corelli.
Wow.
Tebaldi was singing. This season was. He said he went to see the second day he was there. They did Otello, and then that guy steps on stage and he sings Esultate, and it was Delmonico and Gobi.
Oh my God! Wow.
And Tebaldi.
Wow.
The next night was Chenier. And it was Corelli, Stella, and Bastianini.
Wow.
So that's who he heard, and that's what he was thinking when he heard us at ABA. He's like, I want you to continue this tradition.
Right.
So we would do these really intense rehearsals where you were working on 5 bars of music, and he wanted you to be just right. And he managed to do that. He brought stuff out of those singers that
it's amazing.
They would never have gotten without him.
No,
never.
I agree.
And I was fortunate to do, I think it was 14 roles in the 4 years I was there.
Wow.
Now, they weren't all major
roles.
Right.
But still, 14 roles.
I did
14
a lot of
roles.
roles.
Yeah, sure.
And at the same time, I was doing things with Opera Company Philadelphia.
Yeah, that was my next question. Now, were you able to do professional stuff while you were there?
Only Opera Company of Philadelphia.
Okay, so you couldn't travel. You couldn't go.
No, they didn't allow us.
Right back then.
At that time, when I was going to ABA, the first 2 years, I was going to at 5:30 in the morning, going and opening up Fraser's Gym up on North Broad.
Wow.
and getting everything ready for those guys. And once they came in, then I bugged out and went down to ABA and had my language coaching at 8:30 in the morning, and I didn't leave till 6.
Wow.
So it was a full
full
day.
A lot of people don't understand that. Singing is hard enough, and learning it is hard enough, and then when you have a full-time job on top of it, that's.
But I got a chance to work out. That I was in shape.
Yep.
It came from college and not high school.
So now you completed ABA.
Yeah.
What was your first job after that, and how long did it take you to get a professional job?
I didn't finish ABA.
Oh.
I was supposed to do a senior recital, the farewell recital.
Right.
Never did it. Instead, I was premiering at the Théâtre des Champs-Élysées in Paris as Silvio in Pagliacci
Wow.
with Giacomini.
Oh my God.
Now,
Yeah, I think I would miss my senior recital for that.
Now, I didn't even know who he was.
Really?
And when he opened his mouth
Oh my God.
for the first G's, I was just like,
Yep.
that's incredible.
Yeah.
I've never heard anything like it.
No.
And when he finished Vesti la Giubba, they drowned out the orchestra.
That I
I mean,
believe.
there was no orc. I mean, you can't even hear. It's on the recording. You can't hear the orc. You can't hear a peep.
I believe you say, my God, is this really a human being? I mean, really?
That was, baptism by fire.
Right. You're not kidding.
I remember carrying a suitcase. There were no wheels on the suitcase.
Oh my God.
Through Paris, and I went to Rome, and the same thing. I sang for the Rome Opera, and I sang Silvio, and they were like, "Well, perhaps some Stravinsky."
Stravinsky.
I'm like, okay, well, give me Stravinsky.
Right.
Now, if I had known what I know now,
Right.
I would say absolutely.
Sure.
Because
Sure.
if you sing Stravinsky well, then they will ask you for something else.
Right. Yeah, sure.
If that's what they hear, they want. I didn't have that middle that baritones usually have.
Right. Right.
It wasn't until I sang Barber Seville that I was like, everybody was like, wow, that's. The reviews were insane.
Right.
The voice of a generation.
Wow. Great.
Can you imagine that? I think I lost that one, but it was like
Oh, I believe it.
Syracuse or something like that.
Sure.
And just opened up, and I had no idea. And when the G's came out, they were like that. They just went, and they were big and
Wow.
fun.
It's a fun role, and
It is.
it does sit high. I mean, that's the same thing like the Valentine. It sits high.
Yeah.
So but now, so you're in Europe.
Yep.
When did you come back to the States?
Oh, I came right back.
Okay.
Came right back, and I did. My next thing was New York City Opera.
Right. Okay.
The Tucker Foundation had I
Right.
won a grant from
Right.
them, and right after that, City Opera said we want to hear him. Went in there. I remember what I sang. I sang the Bien Leonore,
All right. Wow.
and so they gave me Marcello.
Good.
And we opened the season with a gala with all the greats were there. Placido.
Sure,
and
sure,
it was Bubbles. What's her name?
Beverly Sills.
Beverly Sills was the MC, and Placido's right here. Cheryl Milnes is right here,
God.
and we're doing the second act of Bohème, and we stop right after she sings her aria. The performances, and they asked me to do the Barber tour.
Great.
And the best thing ever.
Yeah.
32 performances.
Wow.
Great fun cast, kind of insane.
Right.
Trying to make you laugh, the
Oh,
whole
yeah,
time.
right.
Then I came home and I met my wife.
Absolutely.
And when I met Pam, it was at the Victor Cafe.
Yep.
And it was one of those things. She wasn't working there. I wasn't working there. But ABA called and said, we need singers for this event to raise money for a gala that's coming up that I was singing on.
Okay.
So I went down there and I sang Nemico della Patria and as a young baritone.
Yeah.
And she was in the kitchen and everything's going wrong, and she says, I heard this voice, and she said, and she came upstairs and she said, were you the one that sang Nemico della Patria? And I said, yes. She says, that was so good, I'd pay to hear you sing.
Wow.
That's you know, and she said, you didn't look away, you're looking for the next compliment. And he said, of course, you were too cute, you know, what am I going to do? And it was one of those moments, you know, I was in my tails and she's in her full tail. And I saw her across the room, and the crowd parted, and we walked towards each other, and not a word was said, except a few little, you know, congratulations. We danced a little, and then she gave me her phone number. I called her the next day. 10 days later, we had our first date.
Nice.
Then I got called by City Opera to come up and cover Marcello.
Oh, boy.
And I asked her to come with me, because we had not left each other since the first date. And after the third act was over, very romantic, we went to O'Neill's across the street, and we were talking, and before I know it, I'm on my knee, and I asked her to marry me.
Isn't that wonderful?
It was insane. Put up with a lot.
Yeah, well, sure. Listen, you know, it's not an easy life.
No.
You know, especially, you know, listen, she was around music her whole life. That you have to.
True.
So she understood the life. So now you're singing around. Which is not an easy life, because, you know, you're on the road, and you know, sometimes you can, sometimes you can't take them. So now where do you go from here? You're married, so now did you start your fast-paced, or was it sporadic?
It was sporadic. You know, Dallas Opera, but I just sang Yamadori.
Okay.
They did their own reduced versions for kids, and I sang Sharpless for that. And, and it was, again, I think that I was a tenor, and I really had to work to get those low notes out. My low notes are better now that I'm singing tenor.
Tenor, right, isn't that something? Right? Go figure.
But then I went to Vienna, and sang Valentin, and that was successful. Right. And it was one of those really cool fluke things where they're looking for somebody, and you happen to be there.
Wow.
Doing an audition for the head of the Staatsoper. Oh. And he said, "You are very fortunate, Mr. Packard." And I didn't know what he meant. I said, "Yeah, of course. I feel great. I'm singing well."
Right.
Just, I'm sending you over to the Volksoper. They need a Valentine.
Whoa.
They are, for the first time ever, doing Faust in French.
Wow. Okay.
So I went there, and this is the day after I arrived, so, you know.
Jet lag, right.
Yeah, it's starting to set in.
Yeah.
After doing almost 2 hours at the Staatsoper and then going to the Volksoper. So he had me sing 3 things on the Volksoper stage, and he said, "Yeah, definitely." So I went there. Asher Fish was the conductor.
Okay.
I mean, we're talking about a good conductor.
You're not kidding.
And he taught me a few things about singing that thing that we call the passaggio.
Right.
He says, "Because your G's fabulous." He said, "It's the E flat and the F. He says they're so open and kind of a little under because they're so open. They're not quite connected to the body." So I started working on this idea of falsetto release as I'm going up.
Right.
And the voice got brighter and bigger.
Wow.
With less effort.
Right. Well, that's the most important thing. Yeah.
This is so cool. Kansas City came around. They're doing Billy Budd.
Okay.
And I had a new agent. And he said, "I really think this is exactly where you live. You live with Billy Budd and Peleas, Eisenstein. You've got that top."
Right.
And it's the first time I've done an audition, and I've looked out and I've seen the adjudicators with tears in their eyes.
Wow.
And it wasn't because I was putting anything on. It was
Right.
it just fit.
Right.
It just fit.
I get it.
Just fit. So I called Ted Upman.
Right.
The original guy. And unfortunately, he was already heading towards dementia and also losing his hearing. But I learned a lot by just sitting there and talking to him and listening. He said, "Let's put on your recording."
Right.
And every time that you want to add something, let's just stop.
Right, sure.
And it was the best thing. It was so great.
How could you not? Right.
Wow.
Sure. Well, that's an honor in itself.
Yeah, after
Right.
I did it because I asked my friend Bob Mano, I said, Bob, well, who's the best Billy?
Right.
And he said, Richard Stillwell.
Wow.
Absolutely. And I beg all these younger singers, find the people who did the roles. They've gone through those hard parts.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, you had a large career as a baritone.
Yeah.
I mean, large. Now, you had probably one of the greatest honors that of anybody, any of the singers that I know, is to have Dead Man Walking, I mean, in your repertoire. And I have to ask you this from a mental standpoint.
Yeah.
That's not easy because of the character itself. I mean, how did you get through that?
All right. This is the kind of thing that I've never talked about, is that after the audition process, and there were 35 baritones, I think, in New York that sang for it, and then 2 of us went to San Francisco, sang on stage, and I got it by the time I got home, which was amazing.
Wow.
10 performances. So I'm in rehearsal with 2 amazing performers, not just singers.
Sure.
Frederica von Stade.
Absolutely.
And then Susie Graham, that role was so intense, and she lost her father during the performances.
Wow.
He died right after opening night.
Wow.
And so she went away, and the other cast continued, and then she came back. And I got a chance to do it with Chris Jepson, who I then did it all over the world with.
Right.
And Chris was a different kind of performer than Susan. But, so we're in rehearsal.
Yeah.
Joe Montello, who's never directed an opera before, but he's got a couple of Tonys.
Right. Broadway was this. Right.
He is doing acting exercises with Susan and I, and that kind of thing where you don't sing, you just speak, and he's trying to break something down in me, and I couldn't quite understand it. And I'm still pretty raw with. I've never been with a cast like this for a long period of time.
Right.
And he asked me for lunch. Are they going to fire me?
Right. Jeez.
And we have lunch, and he said, when he was doing Angels in America, and he was doing Louis.
Wow.
And he won a Tony for it. The director said, you are playing Louis how you think he should be played, rather than, I want you to go to the dark side.
Okay.
And he said that to me.
Oh boy.
I want you to go to the dark side. Now, this is singing. This is not acting. This is singing. Yeah. And I did. And I woke up screaming nightmares.
I can believe it.
It was, and I remember Flicka was doing her farewell scene to me, and I had been, acting.
Right.
And I then let myself go.
Wow.
And she finished the scene, and I just burst into tears,
right.
like a real person.
Right.
Like a real person, and I lost it.
Sure.
I lost it, and everybody went their own separate thing.
Right. Yeah.
But because I changed that technique, it was there. It was stuck.
Right.
And it was my life essentially for 12 years.
Jesus God.
And I'm trying to do Rigoletto and Enrico and things like that, and I can't quite figure out what's going on. So I'm going to teacher after teacher trying to figure out what's going on. John, I think I saw 9 teachers.
Wow.
In that 15 years.
Wow.
I was in Germany last year.
Right.
Working with an amazing coach that no one's ever heard of. Dove is his last name. So he was Daniel Barenboim's assistant for 40 years and has conducted at Bayreuth.
Wow.
So he's very cool, laid back, big dude.
Right.
And we're working on Eric in Flying Dutchman.
Right.
And he's telling me to go higher and higher with my placement. And I instead kept thinking lighter and lighter and a little bit lower and right where the chords are. So it was like tilting as I went up. And he goes, "Wow, that's great, great B flat, easy." And you didn't notice that I wasn't singing up into my head like you wanted me to. I was actually singing down here, like there.
Right.
And he didn't. And so I started to put that in to everything else.
Very few singers thrill me. I said, it's when you did something great, I wanted to go back to the rehearsal room, and I wanted to try it. How did he do it? How did he do it? And it wasn't, it had nothing. I was happy for you. I was like thrilled. You did that.
You were at the Michele, the Tavaro.
Oh, right.
When Frank Manafo stepped in.
Oh my God.
That was probably the best thing I did at ABA. It was the first time I ever heard an audience erupt.
Yep. It was wonderful. Absolutely.
It was a lot of fun.
Stunning. And Frank was very, very dear to me. The sad thing is, I'm glad that we're here talking about these experiences, because I feel sorry for the kids today that are in these music programs. It's so far removed from what it once was, and that's what's scary, because people accept it now. You work night and day, to figure it out, as I did. But we came from the same idea of singing. And that's what I'm trying to get across to these kids, that it's more than what you just see on the page. There's a lot that goes into that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're still working. I mean, really trying to, that's a great thing. You're still evolving. And how do you find that now that you're doing with this into the tenor repertoire? How do you feel? I know, because you have a mindset. I know most singers, I'm a baritone, so I sing like this.
Yeah.
So how do you get past that?
Yeah. Well, how do you strip that away?
Right.
And that is still and has been the hardest part.
Really?
Because baritone, it's much deeper.
Right.
The really deep connection. And whenever you talk to a tenor, they basically say, just go with what your body tells you to do.
Right.
And I keep it on that speaky place.
Right.
And you find it.
Right.
There it is.
Right.
The apoggia is there.
Right.
It's on the chorus. Right. I found it with Dead Man Walking, with those G's. I wanted them to be sweet and easy.
Right.
But not falsetto.
Right.
So I'm going, ooh, but how does that feel in my throat? Now I need to replicate that.
Right.
By singing full voice, but with that feeling.
Right.
And I was like, holy crap, that's working really well.
Right.
I think that I found my natural sound. And it is a purity of vowel.
Mm-hmm.
It is not moving around.
Right.
I'm not going higher, I'm not going lower. I'm just thinking a little lighter on the chords. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden this almost stentorian B flat comes out. I'm like, and it's easy. So by the time we got to the modern era, you now have, I think we have great composers.
Absolutely.
I think Mason Bates, I've never heard an ovation like that for a piece, orchestra piece.
Right.
Philadelphia Orchestra did it. And I was there. It was amazing. And Gene Shear and Jake Heggie and Misty Mazzoli, amazing. What's missing? There are none of those tunes that are going to change your life.
Right.
It's like we're tapped out.
Yeah, it's like we lost our imagination.
Yeah, and it's happening also in opera. And there are great pieces being written that as a whole is a great experience. But there's never going to be a piece of that taken off and made into the background of a commercial in 100 years from now.
That's right. Let me ask you this now. You're singing now. What are you doing to repertoire-wise? What are you looking for? Thank you. What are you doing to develop? What are you working on? Tell me what you're doing.
I was known for contemporary literature.
Yep.
So I'm looking at contemporary literature.
Okay.
That's written well. And J. Kagi wrote another opera.
Oh, really?
Moby Dick.
Great.
And the role of Ahab was written for Ben Happen.
You know, I have to say that you're not only a dear friend and just a wonderful human being, but that aside, you can't say aside. I got to say this because I can tell your personality comes out when you sing, and a lot of people that I find don't, because it's not real. Your singing was always real. It was always heartfelt. It was always, to me anyway. I felt when I heard the person, I heard the role. It's like, I can't explain it any other way. But I think those things are connected. I think that your personality, your drive, and your talent have to be the same. And you are a fine example of the throwbacks to the old singers. And I have to say that for years I've been a fan as well as a friend, and I have enjoyed every single thing that you've done. And I wish you the best of success, which I know you will have. And listen, the road doesn't get any easier, that's for sure.
No.
So, but you know what? It's a hell of a ride.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It actually
Congratulations,
has
John.
been a wonderful ride.
Hugo and I today are going to be performing Va pour Kleinzach from Les Contes d'Hoffmann by Jacques Offenbach.
Va pour Kleinzach. Il était une fois à la cour d'Eisenach un petit avorton qui se nommait Kleinzach. Il était coiffé d'un colbas et ses jambes faisaient clic-clac, clic-clac, clic-clac. Voilà Kleinzach. Clic-clac, clic-clac, voilà, Kleinzach. Il avait une bosse en guiseur d'estomac. Ses pierres ramifiées semblaient sortir d'un sac. Son nez était noir de tabac et sa tête faisait cric-crac, cric-crac, cric-crac. Voilà Kleinzach. Cric-crac, cric-crac. Voilà Quand au trait de sa figure, quand au trait de sa figure, à sa figure très charmante, je le vois, elle comme les jours, au courant après elle, je quittais comme un fou, la maison paternelle et m'enfuis à travers les vallons et les bois. Ses cheveux encore sans des sombres, nos cœurs et nos amours, sa voix vibrante et douce, aux cieux qui l'écoutaient, j'étais sur son vainqueur, aux cieux qui l'écoutaient, j'étais sur son vainqueur, pour l'éternel écho, résonne dans mon cœur.
Very, very nice. Thank you, Jason. Okay. Let's in the gallery view here, and let's see who we're going to start with. Let's start with Maestro John Horton Murray, please. Oh, hold on. There we go.
Hi, Jason. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Bravo, bravo. It's a tough aria. And the way you sing all those E's in a row, bravo, bravo. Have you ever thought about where you modify, go into the second register, whatever you call it?
I usually think about it around F sharp and G. Like,
Right, because some of the G's seem to be like still chest register, wide open.
oh, okay.
Are you doing that on purpose?
No, I wasn't, but I will make sure it's more modified.
Because there's one thing right at the end where he's on, "La-da," and there you did it beautifully right into the head voice, or whatever you want to call it, second register. But I think that more of those notes on the top, the G's, the A's, all can be more in that and be even more beautiful. I mean, the chest voice is beautiful, and you can stretch it way up there. Bravo. But I think if you bring that beautiful tone that you have for those higher notes and bring that down to your G's will be even more beautiful. Bravo on the French. The interpretation is wonderful. So it's just that I would say for the longevity of your singing, it's hard for the voice to sing that chest voice way up there.
Okay.
Very good. Okay. Thank you, John. Okay. Let's go with Maestra Lisa.
Hello, Jason. It's lovely to see you again. I have heard you sing before, and it's lovely to see you again.
Well, thank you.
That was very, very nice. I have very little to offer. I think I am the only female in the room here today.
Lucky us.
And I am a voice coach and not a voice teacher. You probably may know that, but I'm not. So I'll let the gentlemen all speak to you about vocal things. Although I agree about the top. I actually thought your French was quite good, especially in the first section. So bravo for that. It's one of the hardest things about French is where or where not to do a liaison. And I have the score sitting right in front of me with all the markings on it. And you did an excellent job. Everything was absolutely perfect.
Thank you.
The only other thing, two other little tiny things. I feel like the second half of this where it's not quite so, da, 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 and it gets a little more smooth, despite the fact that, which was played beautifully by Hugh, the piano part is quite, I would love to hear you do a little bit more sense of legato over that kind of frantic. He didn't play it frantically, but it sort of looks frantic on the page. So just a little bit more legato in that second section. And the only other thing is I felt like the very last note, the mon cœur, the C sharp, was like ever so slightly above the pitch. So, but that's about all I have to say other than I think you did an excellent job. Looking forward to your second piece.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay. Let's go to Sandor Schneller, please.
Oh, very good, very good. That is an extremely difficult piece to sing, so congratulations on that. One thing I would like to agree with what Mr. Murray had to say is that as you're going up, you seem to be losing some backspace and I think that you're working too hard to make the pitch. And you are making the pitch in most cases. That was okay, drop sharp at the end, but it's it's like you're very focused on keeping everything in the mask and right here, and you're not letting the backspace go up like that and resonate like that, and it's making you work a little bit too hard. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Like I have a naturally bright voice, so something I'm continuing to try to work on is to get more oscuro in the chiaroscuro mix.
Okay. And how are you going about that?
Well, I mean, I'm trying to, cover my best to cover, and try to get it out of the jaw as much as possible, so that it's a richer and warmer sound.
And I think what might be able to help is if you make the bocca di fiori, where you put your lips forward like this, because what that does naturally is it opens space in the back. Okay. So you can go like E, but if you go E, you get a richer sound, and it's easier actually to produce certainly in the upper registers it is.
Okay.
So don't let the sound fall back there, because that's what the tendency is. When singers make more space in the back, the voice tends to sink back there and they lose the front space, but you have to have a mix of both. And I think a little more backspace would bring out a lot more richness in your voice, that I can hear that it's in there, and you just have to release it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you, Sandy. Thanks. Okay, let's go to George Hogan.
Hey, Jason, thanks for singing for us today, and bravo, Hugh. It's always a pleasure to listen to you. Hey, you've got a great voice, dude, and I'm just going to probably echo a lot of the same things my great colleague said before me. One thing is, I have to say, I thought you did a really good job with your breath control and your support. I never felt like that C level rose on you, especially like John had talked about on the E's. Those are easy to do. Let the larynx get up behind the nasal pharynx there a little bit. And I liked your ah vowel a lot. The top is going to change just depending on the vowel as well, going into the F sharp and G. But I agree with John. I think especially on the E vowel, I would give a little bit more backspace for that. So, going along what Maestro Schneller was talking about, when you get up to the top, it's almost like an inversion, where it feels like it switches back, it goes down. So if you had here and then it switches, instead of feeling like you're continuing to go up, the resonance goes up, but that feeling of, of the vowel, finding that backspace in the vocal folds, and in the French, for me, I guess I'm more with, Ernst Grubb. I like the Italian vowel approach to all of those. Don't get so caught up in the front position of French vowels. I would really let it open up real tall in the pharynx for me. Also with, Maestro Lisa, I would agree on the mon coeur. There's times through that passaggio there where you might want to think of it a little bit more between the eyes and on the bridge of the nose. But we're all different. We're all made up different. I really like what you're doing with a lot of the sound. On the top, you might want to think of a more composite vowel, sometime. I think Maestro Schneller was kind of talking about that as well. So like if you're going to sing, an E vowel, I love the lip form on that. Also, you might want to think of maybe opening up the backspace to a little bit more of an A, a closed E, so that you get a little bit more space. So, anyway, that's all I have to say. And listen, man, if you want to unbutton your coat, go ahead, dude.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Let it unbutton that sucker and sing. There you go. That looks good. All right. That's all I have to say.
Let's go to the wonderful and talented John Packard, please.
I'm going to talk a little bit about character, since everybody talked about position and all that. This guy is a storyteller, and it's at the time when they didn't have the internet, they didn't have television, and they looked forward to this every night. This guy would come in, and you're all buddies, but you have to communicate that this is a story that goes into a different place.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when you sing, I've never seen a face so charming, and they've been into this Klein Zach guy. So I'd like you to experiment with just speaking the words as if you're telling a story to your buddy, maybe even one-on-one. And then there are 3 guys there, and then there are 7 guys there. And you'll see how your body language will start to loosen up and melt a little bit into the character that you need at that moment. And while you're doing all this, something catches your eye, or something changes the moment, and all of a sudden you're talking about this amazing woman and you continue from there. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll find that your hands will go where they need to go. No one tells a story with their hands out like this, unless they're talking about something that's that wide. You know what I'm talking about? I hope that'll help.
Mm-hmm.
Jason, could you tell us a few things about yourself? Where'd you study? Where are you? Where are you going?
Yes. Well, I currently live in Wilmington, Delaware. I did my bachelor's of music at Boston University. I did my master's of music at University of Michigan, and I did a performance diploma at the Peabody Conservatory of Johns Hopkins University. My current teacher is Stanley Cornett. He works at Peabody, and right now, as are most artists, I'm unemployed, but hopefully I'll get to work soon. And I've done the Aspen Music Festival. I've slipped in a program in Germany and also in Italy, and I was a young artist at Charlottesville Opera, and I was going to be a young artist with Opera Delaware last spring, but unfortunately that was canceled due to COVID. I was fortunate to sing once with the Baltimore Symphony and Marin Alsop, so I guess I'm still at that beginning stage of my career. My goal as far as roles is, to be honest, I'm blessed to. My goal is to be able to sing full time professionally, and I'm really happy to do whatever. But I think if I had an option, I love a wide variety of things, and I would love to specialize. I think for right now, I think a mixture of some of the character tenor stuff, but there's also some of those more lyric roles or fuller lyric roles that also have,
I agree. I think, to be honest with you, a job's a job. Don't get me wrong. But I think once you have a really good handle on your voice, and I wouldn't characterize yourself as a character tenor.
Okay.
Me personally. But that's just my opinion. So opinions are like rear ends. Everybody's got one. What else? What do you have to offer? What are you going to like to sing for us?
I also have Imperiani from Le Nozze di Figaro.
Okay. Okay, you start when you're ready.
In quegli anni in cui val poco la malpratica ragion, ebbi anch'io lo stesso poco, fui quel pazzo cor non son, fui quel pazzo cor non son, che quel tempo e coi belli non avrebbe capito, e capricci e riputtini dalla testa mi calmò, dalla testa mi calmò. Presso un piccolo lo avvituro. Se con lei mi intrasse un giorno e togliendo giù l'alloro dal pacifico soggiorno una pelle di sommaro, di somaro, di sommaro, pregni disse, o figlio caro, poi disparve mi lasciò, mentre ancor tacito guardo quel dono, il ciel s'annuvola, primo bel trono, mi sarà grande, scroscia la piova, e con le membra coprirmi giova, col manto d'asino che mi donò, col manto d'asino che mi donò, tenisce il turbine ne fo 2 passi, che fiero orribile dianzi a me passi, già mi tocca, d'ingodo bocca, già di difendermi speme o no, mai fiuto ignobile del mio vestito tolse alla belva Sila appetito che disprezzandomi si rinsalvò, così conoscere mi fe la sorte, onde, pericoli, vergogna e morte, col buio d'asino fuggir si può, onde, pericoli, vergogna e morte, col buio d'asino fuggir si può, col buio d'asino fuggir si può, col buio d'asino fuggir si può, fuggir si può, fuggir si può.
Wow, quite impressive. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Jason. Okay, let's go in reverse order, and I'm going to take everybody out of this view, if I can get there again. Yeah, big gallery. Let's start in reverse, please, and we're going to start with John Packard, please.
Again, I'm going to speak again about character a little bit. Jason, do you ever use a mirror when you are rehearsing?
I do, but yeah, I need to use it more often.
Here, let me show you something. See that huge thing there? There it is. I have an 8-foot by 4-foot mirror in my studio.
Okay.
Because I had trouble with my hands and with one particular thing. If I can get this thing to go back again. And that was that as I was singing, I was thinking about the music and not about the character. And I noticed that my eyes started to wander.
Mm-hmm.
I would like you to practice in front of a mirror as if you were speaking to somebody again. Because you go into singerland between phrases. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. And you actually, you lose connection with us because of that. It doesn't mean that you stare us down. It just means that there's a focus there, and you can be speaking to somebody, a friend, and your eyes can go off to the side, but you're still connected. And I just felt like you weren't as connected as you could be. But by the way, it was magnificently sung. Nobody sings it like that. Usually, we were just talking before this, and we would like to hear you as Don Ottavio. Because Don Ottavio is, believe it or not, well, it's a very difficult role, first of all, but it's in the cracks, and you handle the cracks very well. You know what I mean? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Okay, let's go back to George, please.
Okay, Jason, great job again. And you've got such a solid sound, dude. I really, really like that. And great stuff from John Packard as well. And that's, you know, I would like to even go on beyond that. Work your facial expressions. Know what they are through sense memory with your musculature. You know, like, so if you're like, you know, I mean, even gag stuff, just work it out, know what that look is before you do it. I think, especially in character stuff. The other thing I would say is in your words and your text with, being especially a character actor, right? That's very important. You want to absolutely sing this better than anybody I've ever heard sing that aria. Usually it gets cut because the guy sucks. So, well, I'm just being serious. Who wants to hear the tenor? You know, I mean, that's usually what it is. So, I mean, I've done that role a lot, and I was always happy when it was cut. Anyway, but that being said, you want your gestures to make sense with your text, with your words. So if I went like, go there, that wouldn't make sense. But if I went like, go there, also auditioning on Zoom is a lot different thing than it is in person for sure. But that being, beyond that, I'm going to agree with a lot of people here, especially with Maestro Tenalia. Don't sell yourself short. You've got a great voice, and it's not just a comprimario voice. So one thing I would say that, I think the voice is the personality and the personality is the voice. You have a lovely spirit. You have a lot of grace to you. Do not say I'm sorry or apologize, man. You've got some stuff there. Stand tall. If you disagree with one of us, man, make your case. I respect that for sure. And then going back to, Packard kind of stole my thunder on this, but I'm going to throw another layer on the cake. Absolutely, Don Ottavio, man. Absolutely. And you know what? I would even, I bet you could sing the crap out of Dallas or Apache as well. And you've shown us enough facility to do the Il Mio Tesoro. The other thing I might think about is Pedrillo. I know that opera's not done that often, but oftentimes, the aria out of Figaro is cut, and, I mean, the Hoffman is great. But if you're looking for a different Mozart aria, to kind of branch into that part where you talk about being a lyric tenor, I think the Ottavio is, man, I think that's your stuff. That's all I got to say. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, George. Okay, let's go to Sandy, please. Sandy Schneller.
Nice job with that. Very much so. Overall, you were mostly in tune, and the rhythm was good. And I do agree with everything that Mr. Packard and Mr. Hogan had to say. I would also add onto it, on the technical side, that on a few occasions, and more especially towards the end, that you seem to be lifting to reach the pitch. And you don't have to do that. If you, I think, would create that back space, but as you're singing, let more air be metered out of your nose than it is right now, you'll find, and don't think of that note as much higher than the one that was right before it. It's right next door to it, like this. And if you sing it in the same position, then I think that you'll have some very good success with that pretty easily.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Sandy. Okay, let's go to Maestro Lisa, please.
I think you have a great voice, Jason. I told you I heard you one time before. I thought it then too. So it's confirmed. You have a fab voice. I don't have much to say. It's actually kind of nice to hear this piece because it is, as George said, the Basilio usually kind of sucks and they cut it, but you don't suck at all. You're really quite good. And that was really a pleasure to hear it. And I'm looking at it. Can I have the music here? Because I actually don't know it very well because it's cut. And it looks like, again, bravo to Hugh, because this looks like a bitch to play, I have to be honest. And there's a lot of moving accompaniment and very choppy kind of accompaniment. Not him, no, he played beautifully, but sort of the way it's written. So, which brings me back to my usual point. I'm like a broken record here. I just feel like it needs more legato in general. But except for the last section, which is faster, which had much better legato. So bravo on that. That was excellent. And I think you really have some good training. I mean, it's really terrific to hear a really nice, solid singer. I feel your Italian is really quite good in general. The only thing I would add is this kind of ties in with the legato thing that I'm talking about. Like at the beginning where you have, hold a second, I got to get to the piano over here. I'm a little bit far away from it. Da 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 John, and you go bianchio. That's a hard one because of the double consonant, but those eighth note patterns, try to get a little bit more of the vowel in there. That's probably not a very good example because there's a double consonant in there, but where you have like a capricci, a cap, a ca. I need to hear a little bit more of the vowel in general, especially in this first section. There's all that running accompaniment underneath you. And same thing in the minuet section. Did you get a chance to rehearse this at all before you sang it today?
No.
Okay, so you did a really great job, and this is really a hard thing to do with somebody that you haven't rehearsed with. You both really pulled it together really beautifully. It was kind of hard to get that minuet tempo the way it worked for you, and you finally settled into something, and so good. I mean, that's also a really good skill to have when you haven't really worked with the pianist, or it's a piece that isn't. I'm sure Hugh knows this piece, but it's a piece that isn't done much, and just to sort of put it together on the fly like that, I think it was really well done. So that's really all I have to say. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Let's go to the wonderful John Horton Murray.
Okay, so you know how the opera houses in the States are huge, and in Europe they're small. In Europe, you'd never be a character tenor because you have a big, beautiful voice. So character tenor, I don't know who told you that, but I disagree.
It has to do, I think, just with more appearance, because everything is appearance past today, and so I'm just trying to be practical.
Right.
And, I enjoy singing. I enjoy making people laugh. So,
Yeah, I agree. If they want to hire you for Don Basilio, or Don, what's the tenor part in this?
Basilio and Curzio.
Yeah, right. If they want to hire you for that, that's great. Now, remember, just from a technical language standpoint, that in this aria, he's making a big joke about some donkey or something, and how it's an ass and all this. So enjoy it a little bit more. That it's funny. He's trying to tell the joke to his friend. Who's standing there next to him? It's Dr. Bartholow, right? So you're telling a joke. You're telling a funny anecdote. So let us see, just when you perform it, let us see you enjoy it more. Okay. Now the other thing about repertoire, have you sung Mozart arias?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that's where you sound like to me. Lyric tenor, Mozart, everything else that goes with lyric, all the German stuff, all the French stuff. And don't worry about the physical thing. That you can always work on that.
Okay.
But you have to go where your strengths are, and your strengths are with the fact that you can even sing through the Tales of Hoffmann aria. So bravo. So the other thing I want to talk again about the top. Do you know how you said, when you said that phrase, defend me?
Yeah.
You feel where the voice went that time?
I think so, yes.
Okay. So the head voice, or whatever you want to call it, the upper register, the way it goes into that is you just have to let it go in. And on Defend Me, you're doing it. So if you went, Defend Me, there's your whole upper register. The other way, Defend, and then because the next line, what's the next line after Defend Me? Remember? What is it?
Speme no.
Yeah, because then that you sang wide open in the chest voice again. Spame no, But if you go, Defend Me, Spame no, into that nice, easy second register, or head voice, as they call it, you'll find it's so much easier to sing. Okay? Okay, and definitely you're a Mozart tenor, maybe even heavy lyrical stuff, Don't tell, offer all of this. You can offer the character stuff too, but you are a lyric tenor.
Okay. Thank you.
I agree, John. Thank you. Okay. First, I have to tell you one thing. I've done Marriage of Figaro several times. And if the tenor would put this aria in, I automatically hated him because I couldn't go home early. But with that being said, I want to say a couple of things. From a guy who's been large for the last 20-some years, okay, up and down. I have suits in my closet from size 42 to 64. You have the voice to convince people that you are a character. Don't ever let anybody pigeonhole you into thinking because of the way that you're built, you're a character tenor or you're something else. If you ever come across somebody like that, walk away. Because your pride and your honor are worth more than that, and so is your voice.
Thank you.
And listen, I look at this in the mirror every day. But the one thing that I had, first of all, most of the baritone roles are not romantic. So that kind of part I have. But I had that all my adult career. So I had to convince people that I was the character, and I did that with my voice and my physicality. Because, today's world, yes, everything is in HD, and they want a movie star, and you don't have a chance to really show, because when you look at somebody, you get an opinion. But when you open your mouth, that opinion's changed. And because we don't know your personality when you just see you walking on stage, okay? But when you open your mouth, we do.
Okay, thank you.
And I agree with everybody that you have a lovely, lovely lyric tenor voice.
Thank you.
I also want to say I wish you would work on the transition mentally going into these other roles. And I really think Ottavio would be perfect for you, really. And we're all texting, if you could see over here, because we hear certain things in your voice that maybe you don't. And get the director thing, I've hit it all my life.
Oh, well, actually, he always has believed that my voice is a lyric tenor voice. And that's, well, for instance, that's why, I'm doing things such as the Hoffman, because it also has that lyrical section in the middle, but also the character stuff. And like the other thing he wants me to look at is the Italian singer from Rosencavalier.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so like basically like the goal is I'm just trying to be strategic with the roles that I present, like roles that can show my voice, but also I'm like, and yeah, maybe I should just get over the whole appearance thing. But I guess like my goal is to try to find things that can showcase my voice, but they're also not going to say, "Oh, he's too heavy to play that role." So, like
you did it here.
For example, there's a little bit more leeway. There's like a lot of different types.
Well, bullshit, because Pavarotti did it, and he was my size when he used to do it. So, manicism is romanticism. So, if you have it or you don't have it, there you go. So, if you make us believe it, I listen to the voice and I'm looking at your gestures. I'm not really looking at anything else. And there's no scale on the floor, so don't worry about it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Listen, I can't say anything any better than everybody did. I wish you a lot of luck. We continued success. This echo is driving me insane. If you had to, what would be a piece of music that you would like to sing right now, if you had it? Or a role that you would like to sing. What is your optimal? What is your favorite role?
Well, I haven't done a whole ton of roles, but like my favorite role that I've done is Nemorino. I'd love to do Hoffman because, I like, the personality and like, he's interesting, but he also has beautiful music.
Great. Does anybody else have anything to add before we close?
Hey, John, I'll say something. Listen, I remember being at AVA and working with Dino Yiannopoulos, and Dino would always say, Hogan, why can't you be tall like Jerry? You know, well, Jerome Hines was about 6'7", which is a lot taller than I am. But I remember a fellow that played for the Sixers, Murphy. He was actually 5'9", 5'10", and he could one bound from a flat foot, he could jump up and dunk the basketball. So it came up with this old saying that I used to say, which was, what's better than a tall basketball player? Well, it's one trying to make up the difference, Jason. So for me, I would go into auditions. I would have some people say, Mr. Hogan, how tall are you? And I would say, well, I don't know. How tall do you need me to be? You know?
Yeah.
So, and oftentimes I would get off stage and people would say, boy, I thought you were taller than that. You know, so it really is a lot of how you perceive yourself. Now, granted, totally agree with John. Sometimes our shortcomings can be our strength, though, you know. So, I'm going to step out there. I know it's probably taboo. I've already spoken with one of my colleagues on here, but I am going to step out there. If you want to enter into some of the other roles, then there are some good ways to lose some weight. Now, everybody's DNA and everything's different. And I'm not advocating, I'm not a doctor or anything else. But I'm telling you what they're not going to tell you in an audition anymore. And you know exactly what that is. So, I think there's some other, we didn't really completely hear the top. I'd love to hear where that's going. I know that my buddy Richard Burke was a lot like that. He had a B flat, but the B natural and C were later in his life.
Not in public, but I've sung, Daughter of the Regiment in, my practice. So I do have to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And John's right. Walk away from those freaking people. Most of them don't know they're a bunch of eunuchs in a harem anyway.
I got to use that one, George. Thanks. Okay. Jason, thank you so much. I am, as usual, I agree with my fellow colleagues. They are spot on their comments are as great as their voices and their talents. So I wish you all the best. And again, I'd like to thank Hugh Kronroth, Maestro, again for playing. It's always a pleasure, Hugh. Okay, we're going to call this one a wrap.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason.